how do you get to the point now where you've taken in Berklee and you're back at Grande Prairie and you're working at, you're doing your thing. Let us know a little bit about how you got there.
Sure. One caveat or disclaimer real quick. I feel like every question that people ask me, there's always like a very like circuitous answer. It's never like, I did this, then I went there. Like, I think my life and my story is just like, like a circuitous hustle, perhaps. Maybe that's the lesson right there. So real quick, I was born in India. Like I'm an immigrant to Canada, like many folks, like my family moved out when I was little, looking for opportunities, better or different or whatever. So we first moved to Saudi Arabia. It's a common route for people moving from elsewhere in the world to get elsewhere in the world. We lived there during the first Gulf War, which was very interesting. So we, flew in and we were there over Operation Desert Storm and the whole thing. Wow. Then when airspace opened back up, we moved to London, England, which was a grand old time. So I spent like my middle school years in London. And then I feel like when I was 14, we moved to Canada. Again, like a lot of landed immigrants, we moved like, not like to Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto. We moved up to Hay River, Northwest Territories. So like, yeah.
That's a different thing.
A little bit of a culture shock for sure.
I would say.
Absolutely. So it was like January 6th or 7th, like 1997, like from London, England, all the way to, Hay River, NWT. Like you said, different, like fascinating time to be there. But again, I love it. I got used to the North, really good time, graduated high school at Diamond Jeunesse Secondary School. And then I actually went into pre-med. I was kind of a smarty pants, so I graduated high school early. So I went to the U of A for pre-med.
Nice.
Because I was young, perhaps I was like 16. After like a year at the U of A, I thought, you know what? I don't know if I want to be a doctor anymore. I love music because I've been playing guitar since I was like 12. I'm going to be a musician, mom and dad, family. So I dropped out of the U of A.
What? Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. I love it.
And then I ended up in Grande Prairie. Like initially I was thinking about doing a couple of years of GPRC and then transferring somewhere else for something not music related. But once I got here, again, probably because I was young and I don't know, misguided or correctly guided, who knows these things. I just kind of cemented myself in the music scene here in town. And again, I'm not sure how long you guys have been in town and that whole thing, but when I moved here, it was like just a glorious time with like a lot of bands, a lot of open mics, a lot of jams. So Howler's Lounge at GPRC used to be one of the places that had a lot of sort of open mics and shows and stuff like that. So I just kind of met my people, like I met, guitarists, songwriters, singers, just people to play music with. And that kind of started me off on my journey, that has now ended up back in GP after so many years. Where can I go from here? Would you guys like the next step in the journey? Do you have any questions?
No, well, I was going to ask, so you popped that, decision to your parents. Okay, I'm gonna drop out with the med. I'm gonna get into music. How did they initially take that? Because you had already been playing guitar since you were 12, so you had already must have been pretty good at what you were doing, right?
Yeah, I was, and this is. I'm like a nerd in every aspect of my life, including like playing guitar. And so, when I got into it, I would just, I would get my homework done and then I would just play. I would just play guitar all evening. Like that was just my thing. So in terms of like my belief in myself, maybe it was misguided again, but I just knew I could do it. You know what I mean? Like I'd studied theory. I'd gotten pretty good at playing and technique. And as far as my folks go, I got to preface all this by saying, I love my folks. They're just the nicest people.
That's awesome.
They're so supportive, in every way. Like they're just awesome parents. Like I really had a blessed kind of life. Right. At the time, it was a different kind of conversation. It went, you guys, all of your watchers and listeners, it went whatever version of it you have in your mind. It was exactly like that. They were not too pleased. They were confused, blindsided. Where did this come from? What's happening? Medicine, here's like a thing that makes sense and you can be a doctor and do the thing. Music, there's no certainty, right? Like, so it took, and again, I guess I've been doing my own thing since I was young, so they just had to go along with it. But I think once they saw, just how serious I was and like what the next steps were for me, they were nothing but, they had to be, cool with it, but they're nothing but supportive.
Yeah, you definitely need that support system, right? You need the belief in yourself and you need to put in the work, but also helps to have that supportive structure around you to kind of say it's okay to make this decision and to go for it, right? So it definitely, that's awesome that, most people don't have that, right? And I think, maybe people fall short and stuff where,
or don't even want to admit, out of whatever their feeling about it is, but even, embarrassment or whatever the thing is. Yeah, sometimes you just gotta go for it, man. And look where you were.
Yeah.
Right? Like
exactly.
Yeah, man. Yep. No, that's awesome.
So what were you playing then at I guess you were probably living in London maybe then when you picked that up? What were your first songs you were playing? You know what I mean? What was your thing? What was your go-to?
Dude, that's okay. So that's a great question. Like everything else, long story. No, I'll keep it. The bullet points are short.
No,
so,
longer the better. Let's go.
Perfect. Hey, happy to
let
get
it
into
rip,
it,
man.
guys.
We're here as long as you are.
You got me all night, so happy to go deep.
Perfect.
I wish I had a beer though. I've been cooking and eating dinner with my kiddo, and I'm like, I gotta hydrate and drink some water.
That's a smart idea.
But really, I should be joining you guys with a beer. But so I was London, England, and there were music lessons in grade 7
Nice.
at my school, and so I was kind of like, okay, hey, mom and dad, there's music available, let's do it. And so they signed me up for it was classical guitar lessons. And so they're kind of like, listen, we know you love rock music and other kinds of music. I'd kind of gotten into, I don't know, just a variety of different styles of music just through cassette tapes that they had. And so I'm living in a kid in India or a kid in Saudi Arabia, and I'm pulling out cassette tapes that are like Derek and the Dominoes, Joni Mitchell, to the Sound of Music soundtrack, just
nice.
All sorts of stuff. Black Sabbath, Deep Purple,
Wow,
crazy.
That's pretty
Heart.
awesome.
It's just wild, everything.
That's pretty wild. That's
so
awesome.
they're kind of like, listen, classical guitar lessons, that's the best we can do. And we weren't we didn't have a bunch of money back then, so it's the school includes guitar lessons, this is what you're doing. Perfect. So I thought, okay, fine, classical guitar. But the teacher, I remember his name. It's a very British name, Mr. Paul Butterworth.
Yes.
So
Very,
I show
very
up. I'm like,
British.
Paul Butterworth, God, he's going to be such a stick in the mud. Some old guy or whatever, lady, who knows. And first day there, me and 2 other kids are sitting in one of the music rooms, and dude walks in who looks like Nikki Sixx and Yngwie Malmsteen. And I mean that Nikki Sixx haircut, okay, long hair. He's got leather pants, cowboy boots, and my personal favorite, dude, the puffy shirt.
Oh,
nice.
God.
Nice. Just
Mr.
going for it.
Mr. Butterworth. Just throwing
Mr.
it
Butterworth
down.
bringing the heat.
That's
Throwing it
awesome.
So he walks in, and I thought, listen, in my mind, this guy might be able to teach me rock music. I think I've lucked out
I
here.
think there's something there.
And so
Something in here.
there's something there. So I made him a deal, and he was like, listen, you don't make deals, I make deals. Okay, if you bust your butt and learn all the classical guitar stuff, and I mean theory, note names, the pieces we're learning, as soon as you're done this stuff, and if there's time, I'll show you some rock stuff. And so I started by playing, I don't know, classical gas and some kind of adagio and some kind of minuet and that kind of stuff, which is great because again, we just had lovingly a shitty old classical guitar. And then so I worked on that, awesome. And then he started teaching me sort of tunes that were popular at the time in England. So I got into stuff like Oasis, Lenny Kravitz had Are You Gonna Go My Way Out, stuff like that. So it was just a wild mix of old tunes I don't know, Elvis and the Everly Brothers, to Oasis and current pop stuff, to once I started getting through that, he started teaching me just little solos and little melodies in those songs. And so now I look back and I'm super thankful because that classical guitar discipline definitely helped develop my ear and my sense of just playing and note names and theory and stuff. And also, if any of you guys play guitar, forget bending on an acoustic guitar, but trying to practice bends on a classical. My gosh,
Pretty thick.
Whew.
It's a little thick.
Pretty thick. Oh, you got to bend it way up. So
man. That's awesome.
So that's how I started. Those were the first tunes. That was the first, that's how I got into playing guitar.
So roughly, what year roughly would that be around?
Yes, that was 1993, 95. We moved to England in 90, like early 93. So probably 94, I
Oh,
started
nice.
playing guitar, or I started getting into this.
So very kind of like at the very kind of upcust of like all the new grunge stuff coming around, and like that weird. I don't even like a lot of Britpop, which I would have been
Yeah.
coming up at that time, which I'm a large fan of myself. Um,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it's cool. Yeah, that was a interesting vibe too, because it kind of did it like a '70s thing, but it felt new, like, and not just Oasis even necessarily. Like Blur was a big thing. I love Blur. I think they're wicked. Like one of probably the
Yeah.
in the battle they win in my mind. Not that I don't like Oasis, but I like Blur. Like I like them more. I like their
Yeah.
tunes more. That's awesome. So I guess now, so like now that you're older, so you would assume I would assume that this has become your influence and stuff like this now. Obviously, that time frame, which most of us, that's a very crucial point, is the beginning. That's cool. Yeah, man. So take us through. So you're coming along. You're starting to get into your rock and roll side. So now you're getting deep into theory. You're getting that kind of stuff going. Like, so what made you want to approach, like Berklee and that type of scenario, and then get into engineering? Which I mean, I like the engineering myself. That's what I did in school as well. So like, I like to hear other people's path to that kind of thing. Like, because it's the instrument, and usually for me it was the instrument, then the engineering. You know what I mean? There are pure engineers out in the world, but
Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, and like a lot of us who play, and whether we play in bands or just jam and stuff, at some point you kind of start, even if you play open mics and stuff, some of us just kind of get drawn into like, there's no sound guy, so suddenly you're doing sound, right? Or you show up at an open mic and there's nobody doing sound, and you got to plug stuff in and do whatever. And so I spent my, it's funny, like today in 2024, saying like sentences like this, but like I spent my 20s like playing music, like songwriting. I had the good fortune of being in a couple of bands around town that like, toured over Western Canada and like across Canada, played a rock band that showcased in New York in the 2000s, back when like showcasing was still a thing that happened in the music industry, right?
Damn, that's all
showcases. Yeah.
Back in the day. And then I played with a metal band called Calculating Collapse. We were signed to a label, dropped from a label, played all over Canada, recorded a bunch. And so while doing this, just as I was saying, we'd show up to a place and there's no sound guy, or we show up to a place and the sound guy or gal sets up and then they leave, and so things are feeding back. Things don't sound good. What do you do? So, me and a couple other guys in the band, a couple other folks that, I'd make music with, we just kind of defaulted to like, okay, listen, like how can we just cover our butts if this happens again? So I got into live sound first. And then back then, we'd there were a lot of us who kind of put on shows, like who were in bands, but then we'd put on a lot of DIY shows. You know what I mean? So this is like early to mid 2000s in GP. We put on all ages shows everywhere that we could get into a couple of times. Then they would kick us out and we couldn't do it again. But we did it, And so through that, I did a lot of live sound. Then it just turned into a thing where as we got more into songwriting, we like who can afford like studio time and stuff. So somebody, me, a couple other people just got like, I don't even know if we had like mics or anything like that. Like back in the day, you'd get like a computer or something, and you'd have like that shitty, like tiny little mic that you'd like clip somewhere.
Yes.
And so we discovered, I don't even know what, Audacity.
Oh yeah.
Cool Edit Pro, this kind of stuff.
Cool
right?
Edit
Like,
Pro, probably. Yeah, a little Cool Edit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we just started making demos, and we just used this one mic and like figure out where to play guitar in front of, or if somebody's singing, like hold it like this and it doesn't sound terrible. Just starting from that. So that was like mid 2000s to I don't know when I would have saved up and gotten some gear, but I mean I probably got like one of those old M Audio, like 2-channel interfaces.
A little M-Box. Get yourself a little M-Box.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. M-Box and like one SM57 and maybe one SM58.
Yeah.
And that's how it all began. So that's
funny.
Took me through my 20s.
That's my exact first setup. M-Box and those
it
two
works,
mics.
Right?
You can do anything with that.
Absolutely. Vocals, guitar,
Oh, yes.
like stick a 57 and a saxophone, like whatever you're doing.
Yeah, it records it fine.
Absolutely. So that was my 20s. So when I was 27, I'd kind of gotten to the point where I'd played in bands and toured in bands and played, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of shows. And I was kind of getting to a point, not that age has anything to do with it, but was starting to get to a point where I was like, lovingly to all of my bandmates, they would say the same thing, getting like tired of, just being a dude in a van, driving around Canada, which is amazing. But after 7 or 8 years of that, kind of think about what the next thing is.
Right.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had auditioned for Berklee College of Music. They used to do, they still do, in-person touring auditions all over the world.
Oh, wow.
And they were in Grant MacEwan. So I applied. They were like, cool, we're going to be in your neck of the woods. Audition at Grant Mac. I did, and I got in. And then because we were on tour, I just kept deferring admission, not this year, how about next year? Not this semester, how about January? And then one day they were like, hey, so we can't let you defer anymore. If you want to come next January, cool. Otherwise, we can't do this. So that was it. It was kind of a natural time that we'd kind of finished a touring cycle. I think everyone was tired, looking forward to more music, and that was kind of a point where we could all make some changes, and so I decided for me this was the best move. Also around that time, my then girlfriend, now my ex-wife, was expecting. So we have a daughter, and so it just felt like the right time to sort of, if we're going to make a big change, let's do it. So I went to Berklee in January 2011. Yeah, January 2011.
Nice.
We moved the whole family, and so my daughter grew up in Boston, which I tell her to this day.
Crazy.
I was like, if we had lived in Boston, I just wish that she would have had that Boston accent. That would have been just awesome.
Yeah, little town accent,
Little town.
Oh, exactly, the town.
wicked.
Oh my gosh. So yes, that's what took me to Berklee.
Oh,
Nice.
that's amazing, man. So you play hundreds of shows. What do any stand out in your mind that this, you'll never forget this moment in time? What were your first? What were some of your first shows that you remember early on, and the bands you were in to your most memorable shows?
Sure, that's a great question, man. And in terms of playing, again, anyone watching this who knows me from back in the day, it's you could probably play 2 degrees of separation, and I've been in everyone's band kind of thing. And so all of those first shows in 2000 to 2003, just figuring out how to be on stage, not looking at my guitar while playing, and then not looking not at the audience while playing,
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Those were just just a trial by fire, man. And as you guys know, anybody who plays music or whatever it is, right? If you do stand-up comedy or something, nothing is better than playing to a room full of strangers. You think you've practiced or you got a song that's good, and people will let you know real quick whether or not it's actually any good. So that was so those early shows were great. The scene in GP was amazing. I ended up in a band called No One's Alone, which was sort of a rock band from 2003 to 6. And so we put a couple of EPs and an album out. And so we were a band, our front guy was amazing, incredible vocalist. And so on the strength of him, and then our increasingly better and better songwriting, we started playing all over Edmonton, Calgary, elsewhere in Western Canada. And so we opened up for Nazareth, Tom Cochrane. We opened up for a bunch of bands. I'm trying to think back. A lot of bands that were in the scene back in the day. Jeffrey Says this, you guys remember the Salads? They're a rock band, a ska band. I don't know.
Yeah, it does sound familiar actually.
The salad.
Yeah.
That does sound familiar.
The Salad's so much fun. So those shows, and so we played SummerSlam.
SummerSlam. That's a good one. Deep Grande Prairie cut
Back in
right
the
there.
Absolutely, deep cuts, baby. I'm all in.
Yeah.
So we played a couple of SummerSlams, and so it's everybody who was there, like Wide Mouth Mason, for example, the Headstones, So all of those were amazing because we were kind of a band for about a year, and then we started getting all these show opportunities. We played, we opened for the Northern Pikes, we opened for the Odds.
Really?
A lot of those bands. Yeah, man, in the early 2000s. It was so much fun. And we played, again, a lot of these venues don't exist, but BJ's.
Yeah.
We played so many shows at
That
BJ's,
was
right?
a great place. Now Long and McQuaid, right?
Now,
Exactly.
That is true. Well, I moved there just as it closed.
I always wish that they had kept the stage where it was and built the Long and McQuaid around that stage. That's the only thing I ever wish. They totally gutted it, and I think it had a lot of musical history that was so awesome. They had so many great bands in there and a great house band in there, and I just wish because they were turning it into a Long and McQuaid music store, just keep the stage because it just has so
one
much
piece.
history just on that little piece
Yeah.
of wood. You know
That's
what I
true,
mean?
yeah.
It was a great place.
Totally.
It was a great.
Right.
Place.
It was one of those places, like my favorite kind of like venue or bar. It's like great vibe. It's kind of divey. Like it was just
Very
that
divey.
It's the
place,
good
man.
spot. It's the goodness.
So good. And so it was, a
Terrible.
lot of rock music went down. So a lot of shows at BJ's back when Better Than Fred's used to be called Sharks.
Yeah.
We played at Sharks. We played at the Corral.
Oh,
And that like all in
Corral.
town, right? So
Oh, baby.
right? Absolutely. Not Rock City, the Corral.
Yeah, that's throwing it back.
Throwback, yeah. That's 10
Throwing
plus
it back.
years.
Oh my gosh. So that was that band. Then that band kind of, the life cycle ended. And so I pivoted, and again, I like an overachiever. So like I love playing guitar and I love playing guitar like really fast. So instantly I had to be in a metal band. So
Sick.
got this metal band going, Calculating Collapse. And with that band, again, we toured Western Canada. We played a ton of shows. We toured across Canada, and we opened for some amazing bands like I don't know if you guys know like Devin Townsend and
Devin
like that whole
Townsend,
crew. So we didn't open for Devin, but there's a band called Zimmer's Hole that had like Gene Hoglan drumming. And I forget what the vocalist's name is for Zimmer's Hole, but he would come on stage like dressed like body painted, dressed like the devil, He's wearing like a leather kilt. Like
Wow.
I don't even know how to describe it.
That's sick, actually.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know that about it. That's
was-
pretty sick. I'm looking that up later.
Absolutely, and if you look up like Zimmer's Hole live. Before we were billed with them, I saw a show that was like, again, some of my favorite bands. So Zimmer's Hole opening for the Devin Townsend band, opening for Strapping Young Lad,
Ooh.
which is like the heaviest show. It was so amazing.
Devin Townsend's nice.
Absolutely, it's like all the Devin Townsend family. What I'll never forget about Zimmer's Hole opening up was, so Buddy comes out dressed like the devil, right? Like he's just got this whole thing, leather kilt. Let me just say that again, leather kilt.
Love it.
Like shirtless and stuff. He walks on stage with like a giant sword, and before the song, like as the song's kicking in, he like waves it around his head and like jams it like into the stage, like just stuck into the stage. Starts singing. So I'm like, wow, this is incredible,
That's metal.
Then
That is metal.
that's metal. Then I don't know when this happened, but at some point he's singing, and he like the between songs the roadies do something, and he like is at the front of stage, and suddenly like he from under his kilt pulls out a giant prosthetic dick, right? Like just very like just like
Love
comically large.
Love it.
But what they're doing is it's like piped into a keg, and they're just like pumping beer through it.
Oh
So he's just like.
Metal shows are the
So he's
best.
just like,
Oh,
The best.
God.
Exactly. He's just filling people's cups with beer, just like pouring beer in people's faces through this thing. It's just the funniest.
I
Oh
am
my gosh.
definitely looking this up later.
I would love to, although it sounds weird to say I would love to see that, I would kind of like to see
I would
that.
like to see that. I'm not gonna lie. Some dude with a
Totally.
giant sword and a giant ween. Perfect. That's wicked. I love it.
Wow. So those guys. So we were billed with Zimmer's Hole. With that band, we played with like a lot of like the great sort of up and coming, and like at that time some of the huge sort of hardcore bands in the scene. Like we opened for like local-ish kind of bands like All Else Fails and folks like that. Unleashed. I don't know if we opened for Unleash the Archers, but we were all like part of the same scene. We opened for Means. Awesome hardcore band, one of my favorite. And to your question about like some of the most memorable shows, man, we opened a show that was Misery Signals on tour. They were like the headliners, and actually maybe they were in the middle, but Misery Signals is one of my favorite bands. So they're on their farewell tour right now. I'm going to go catch them in Edmonton for their like hometown farewell show. So we opened for them. We also opened for Architects before Architects became Architects,
Really?
right? So
That's
they played it Better Than Fred's. We opened that show, and that was on the Hollow Crown tour. And I feel like at the end of that North American stretch, they just exploded, So
crazy.
telling people around those years, like, yeah, we just opened for Architect. People are like, what? Like, wow. But it was not on an arena or at a stadium. We opened for them at Better Than Fred's, and it was amazing.
Oh, that's
So
that's
like,
almost more sick, really.
yeah, totally.
Oh man, like
Totally.
that's a. I got to give a shout out to Better Than Fred's too, because they're the ones really holding it down for the music scene right now. I think so. I think over the years, I think Grande Prairie, like you said, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, the shit it was booming. Like I think you could play almost anywhere, but now I think, you know, as whatever, and then like we're just losing our venues. I feel a little bit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, just definitely like. How do you feel? Like you've played at Better Than Fred's a few times. Like, how do you feel about that place and what it means to Grande Prairie?
Yeah. Absolutely, that's a great question. I'm just going to echo all your sentiments. You know, it's one of the sort of OG, one of the original stages and venues in town. Like, you know, we played I don't know, 100 shows there when it was Sharks, and we played 100 shows there when it was Better Than Fred's. You know, whether it was so Pete Shields ran it when it was Sharks, and he would have a lot of bands in there. And since John took over, I mean, obviously, you know, John Kriska, you know, his commitment to like just having live music all the time is amazing, and he brings in so many incredible bands, incredible artists, and not only that, but you know, like the reputation that Better Than Fred's has. You know, is amazing. Like, you know, whether it's the bands from like, you know, from elsewhere, like I think the Lazies or the Wild. Who's from Australia? Somebody's from Australia.
The Lazies,
so like, you know, those guys, the Lazies, yeah. So those guys, or whether it's like, you know, Big Wreck or Thornley or like the Headstones or Biff Naked. I mean, you know, talking to them about Better Than Fred's, they've come through town a lot and they love it. They love the vibe. John treats everyone well. You know, like he knows the crowd. He knows, you know, what the area would love to have for in terms of shows. And man, I don't have enough nice things to say about that place, you know?
Yeah.
I think the bands that have been through, you know, and the bands that will come through in the future, you know, that place has just always been there, you know. And I got to say, a lot of us, you know, myself included, when we were in bands that were starting out and, you know, maybe we were not the best yet, we hadn't, you know, achieved our full form, you know, John would give us a shot, you know, like if we could hang, if we could bring it, he would have us on stage, he would have us open some shows. And, you know, if we proved ourselves and if we brought out a crowd and we crushed it, I mean, he would give everybody a shot. And that's, I think, again, for the thing that we're talking about, like live shows, being a band, being a musician, getting better and better at like songwriting or stagecraft, you know, that's like, you can't beat them. And you have to have those opportunities to suck, right, on your way to becoming really good.
Yeah. No, and a big shout out for that as well, because I know that's a thing even now. You know what I mean? So good on John and them for doing that, because, you know, and there's only, you know, so many stages to play, and he's given a lot of people a good shot, and there's been a lot of good stuff come through there for sure.
In the peak of my garage band days, I kind of had dreams of playing at Better Than Fred's. I never had dreams of playing at Wembley or the
Just
big
Fred's.
arenas. Like I would have loved to have played at Fred's. Like I think that would have been so cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that.
Beautiful. Heck yeah. Listen, we'll make it happen.
Got to start small, right? Got to start.
Yeah. Well, listen. Do like a Year Was 1985, the podcast band, and we'll you know, we'll hit Fred's, man. We'll talk to John. Be like, yo, let's do it.
We can do some live podcasts from there, maybe like a Kill Tony style thing or something. Not necessarily that harsh, but we could do something live like that.
God.
Get in there.
Kill Tony, I love it. I'll be here for that whole thing, man. But yeah, you guys on stage at Better Than Fred's, come on, that'd be great.
Man,
that'd be fun. Yes, it would.
Well, well, that's my biggest problem is stage fright. Did you ever have issues with that, or probably not? No, or
yeah, I did. Like when I was I feel like, you know, you get it and maybe you never get over it, but you just get better at dealing with it. When I lived in England, and so when I lived in England and I played classical guitar, you know, like I was, you know, I started getting pretty good, so I would play like with the orchestra, and holy shit, like there were it's just hard, you know, like you're sight reading a bunch of classical stuff with everybody, everyone's parents are in front of you, and like it took me a little while to get through that, like just how do I even like handle this, you know. And then when I played in bands, again, being young and, you know, being like lovingly like shitty punk bands and stuff, like, you know, with your friends in the garage, you know, like that's the best, because you just like at a certain point you just stop caring what people think, which is good because it gets you on stage. But then again, when you're on bigger stages, you know, with bigger bands, and like even if it's like 5 people out in the crowd, you're just like, you know, like you freeze, like what do I do? So I don't know how I like got through it, but I think just as we were saying, like maybe, you know, I just got better at dealing with it. And I think honestly, like just again, like anything, the more you do it, the more okay with it you are. So repetition, all the reps, baby.
Put in reps. Yeah, it's only the first 5 minutes anyway.
Yeah, you
That's
just
how I find. Like I mean, even doing this,
Yeah.
like sometimes like you get a little nervous. Like it doesn't matter who you're speaking with. You just kind of get a little vibe or whatever.
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
once you get, it's like anything. Once you get the ball rolling, now you're rolling, kind of thing, right? And like, and I personally, I found playing on stage like first 5 minutes, first song, kind of a thing or whatever, right? But if you get through the first song, it doesn't matter how fucked up it gets. You just keep going, and it's fine.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter like so much. I don't know. It's just about something about doing it, and then once you're rolling, it's fine.
Absolutely. So what instruments do you guys play?
I'm just a guitar player. That's
Come on, me
just
too.
you're pretty decent, though.
We rock.
Yeah,
I'll give you that much.
But I'm just more or less self-taught, really. I never had any formal training or anything like that. But I picked it up, I think, when I was 12, 13 as well, right? So
Nice.
it's something that I've always kept with me and kind of followed through my life. And, whether or not I neglect it, more often than not, some days, I mean, some weeks I might only look at the thing, not even touch it, right? So, but it's something I'll always have with me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think I want to say I started playing originally. One of my buddies had, like, his dad had a couple guitars kicking around the house, like a couple acoustics, that type of thing or whatever. So I picked those up and fool around with them. But before that, I started playing drums in junior band. So I want to say that was grade 7 or something like that. So you're 11 or whatever it is in grade 7, 6 or whatever even.
Just a snare drum.
Well, I originally started a snare drum and bass, like typical start out of orchestra band stuff or whatever.
Yep.
So you had 3 or 4 to 10 snare players and a couple of bass, whatever. So I kind of started there, and like that was kind of what I wanted to do. But as drums are noisy and expensive, so I didn't quite get that. We didn't have a whole bunch of money either growing up, of course. And then so my buddy then had these couple guitars, so I kind of watched his stepdad play a little, and he showed me a couple of little, EAG, whatever kind of nonsense, and then started fooling with that, and then I took it seriously. Eventually for Christmas, I think I was 10 or 11, I can't remember, 10 or 11 anyway, and I got my first acoustic. I took a bunch of lessons, not theory, but just kind of like playing lessons from one of my older cousins who played in a band next door. So that's kind of what really started it over, because I'm becoming 12, 13. I'm getting to be a little punk ass teenager, and there's this rock and roll band playing next door. So I kind of got involved with him, and he started teaching me lessons. But then, of course, all his equipment's in his garage, so he would practice. He would let me play the drum kit because that's what I really wanted to do. So I would learn how to play drums along to his stuff. So I played a bit of drums, and then, of course, I took that to whatever. Then I started playing jazz band, bass. Grade, I don't know, 9, somewhere in that neighborhood. Then what else along the way? And then I kind of stuck in that neighborhood, I guess, till I got into college. And I went to do audio engineering, but of course it came with a music theory program. So then I kind of picked up keys a little and other things. So now I have a mishmash. I took some violin lessons for a little while.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of. If it has strings, I'm kind of okay with it. Everything like horn instruments, brass, that kind of stuff, not really my forte. But I can work my way around a thing with strings most of the time. Played a bit of banjo here and there. I played a guitar in a band for a while. Sick.
Nice.
Yeah, that was sick. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. So I play a bit of everything really, and then did the audio engineering thing and stuff like that. So. Yeah, it's a bigger portion of I play multiple instruments all the time, I guess. I'm not a master of any, but I can play
Jack
them
of all
all.
trades.
Jack of all trades. You need a drum track, I got you. You need a bass track, I got you.
That's right. Yeah.
That's amazing. What are some of like the first guitars you guys owned? Or the first instruments? You're saying and same for me. Like I had like a lovingly someone else's acoustic or classical or whatever,
for sure.
And then eventually you either you get one or maybe you get a present or something like that. Well, what are like some guitars that you guys had, or your first guitar, or your favorite?
Well, I still got my first 2 technically.
I don't have my first one. I think was just I think it was a classical guitar as well, but it was just like from a Sears catalog or whatever it was.
Yeah, special.
So I had that. For me, my inspiration. I have older brothers, and my older brother Luke, he's got 2 friends who were really, really good at guitar, and they would bring him over, and I would just see these guys just playing guitar, and I'm like, that is the coolest fucking thing I ever saw. I want to do that, right? I want to play guitar. So, like I said, I'm 12, and my mom's like, okay, well, I'll
try it out.
Here's this $99 guitar from Sears or whatever it was, and what's that song? Is it not? Is it 5440? Ocean Pearl.
Yeah.
So that was I remember when I first learned. That was the first song I ever learned on guitar, and I remember playing it for my parents. It was just like I felt like yes, like it wasn't all for nothing. Like I actually am learning how to play stuff. You know what I mean? And then I think maybe the song after that was like Bush Glycerine or something like that. But
nice.
And then my so from there it went from that to like in the back of my mind I'm like I want to play electric guitar. And my older cousin had an electric guitar that I've always seen in his closet, but he never ever played, and he never ever could play guitar. He just kind of just left it there, and I'm like, oh, I love that. Now I would always tell my aunt like, I love that guitar and stuff like that. So one day, I think it was for my birthday or Christmas or something like that, she brought it down and gave it to me, and I was just like, oh my god. And that was just like this red, like kind of like 80s, mid 80s, mid
I love
80s.
that guitar, man. That was such a cool guitar for some reason. I don't know.
The company was called Cruise, and I used to call it my Tom Cruise guitar, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It was all red. It just had that kind of 80s metal shape, and I would love that thing. I had this little tiny Park 10-watt amp that it was just killer like thing like that.
The old student Marshall.
Yeah, and then so that was my earliest guitar, and I played that forever, and then I don't know when I ended up getting this Epiphone SG because I always loved AC/DC, and
we all got them one year for Christmas, kind of thing. We all ended up with the same guitar.
The best, I still think the SG, the red SG, is kind of like the staple in rock and roll music. I think I always loved AC/DC. My older brothers, of course, had cassettes and CDs and stuff like that. So I just wanted that guitar so bad. And so we ordered it, and there it was. Like I got it for Christmas or whatever that year.
I think it was 2000 because Mom sent me the picture of me opening my black one.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
like losing
I think I had mine
shit.
maybe a little bit before yours, to be honest. But
maybe,
like I think that was the one, and I still got it, and I'll never get rid of it. My other two, I don't know where those ended up, but and I played that for years and years and years. I don't have much for gear, really. Like honestly, like I got a Strat that I got maybe 6 or 7 years ago that I think is the guitar that I play the most, obviously, right now, and a Taylor acoustic that I love too, and that's what I wanted. But that's my whole guitar history pretty much.
You got a Chipson over there.
Love it.
Yeah, love the Chipsons. I was like, I'm a fan of cheap guitars. I love cheap shit, right?
Yeah.
Like, so. Yeah.
Well, I still can't afford a $5,000 Gibson Custom Les Paul to this day,
sir.
but
of course,
yeah, no, I mean,
who can?
Yeah, there's few can, man. Some of them new deals are getting pretty saucy.
But no, that's why I appreciate the American standard Fender. That's what I love, and I love like Eric Clapton. I love David Gilmour. I love like that sound of the Fender guitar. I think it's kind of timeless, and it'll
iconic.
Yeah, it's just something I love doing, doing some bendy bends on that Fender, maybe like
couple big boomer bends on the go.
Yes, God love it.
Boomer bends, that's right.
Yes,
couple big boomer bends on my American Strat. Yeah, I agree though. Like there's certain I don't know. I like all guitars. They all have their thing. Like I don't know. That's the thing. Yeah, because I think what was my first official guitar, I guess, would have been my Jasmine by Takamine or whatever it is. Yeah, I got that for like so. Like I said, kind of was getting into music anyway. Like I was kind of involved, so it wasn't an uber expensive guitar, but I mean it was probably $500 in 1996 or whatever year I bought that in. So I mean that's pretty hefty at this. It's like $7 million now, but. Yeah, I think that was the first one. Then it was like it kind of took all those lessons and everything. And I remember I did put it down for like a year almost or 9 months kind of thing. And I was like, I'm frustrated, I guess, or something. And then my buddy John Elliott, of course, his brother was a guitar player. He's got this beauty like 78 Tele Deluxe with this super deluxe amp, the whole the whole Fender outfit kind of thing. And of course, I go down there one day and Elliott's after taking a lot of lessons now, and he's after getting pretty good in secret. And he's playing this thing, and I'm like, oh, well, if you can do that, well, I can do it too. So frig off, right? So that's kind of how it all started back up again, was kind of seeing that day. And then, so then I think, I want to say 2000, I want to say, because it's a 99 technically. But I got, so it's the black, like the ebony version of the red one kind of thing, so with the black
Yeah.
white stripe pick guard. And then the one I ended up getting, I bought it from our local place. Shout out Roy's TV. It just closed down. Guys got her all shut down, but Scott and him retired. But I bought it from them. But it technically was made at the Bohemian Samick plant that Gibson used to own at one point. It still does. Well, they own it again now, I guess, technically. And it's like there's only like 50 of these things or whatever. It just they got them to build these guitars for a run or whatever because they had parts. I don't know what the deal is, but it was improperly spec'd. So it's like a Gibson spec'd Epiphone. So it has like Gibson tuners and Gibson pickups and Gibson wiring. Like it's all different than the other one. So we ended up getting that. So that's what I got for that Christmas. And then, of course, I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, this is amazing.
Uh-oh.
Nope.
Did we lose you there? I was probably...
no signal. I'm still here. How are we doing?
Oh, I can see. You're still going. I can still see you. It's just the TV.
Yeah,
the TV decided to
Oh, no.
have a no-go.
No worries. No, we're going to play that game from the Office. The no signal's in the best of the corner.
Uh-oh. That was a first.
That was weird, yeah. Let's see. I'll hit the power button. But
All good. Absolutely. The conversation's too hot.
Just too hot.
Too hot for TV.
Yeah, it's frying. Yeah, too hot for TV. Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
All the audio listeners.
You're
only
definitely
can
still
see
going.
what
I
we
can definitely
see.
still see you because I can see you on my little screen here.
I can hear you good too. So
Perfect.
that's funny.
Perfect.
That's funny.
Hey yo,
There we go.
Hello, bright screen.
Hey.
We'll probably pop back out here now.
no signal.
Hey, there we go. I knew that. It was just
Hey,
it was just because I haven't touched the mouse in however long it's been.
Oh, right. Everything goes to sleep these days,
Getting
right?
too deep.
Getting too deep into the deep cuts here, but yeah. So I got that.
Yeah.
So I ended up with this way better than I bargained for guitar kind of thing, and then I kind of like played that all through high school and whatever. And then I kind of just started buying cheap guitars and modding them and doing things because I did like I mean when I worked in this couple studios and I've been around some good gear. It's like I mean yes, there's merit to good gear. I'm not stupid, but there's also something cool about picking up like I got this Samick that cost me $50, and I put like a $300 DiMarzio pickup in it. That super hot pickup and just one pickup straight out the pipe with a volume knob. Cool. That's perfect. I love that.
Yep.
And that's like my main guitar that I play most of the time. My buddy gave me this Ibanez the other day. So Don gave me that Ibanez with this dime bag pickup in it. So I'm going to mod that out for a single pickup. That's the kind of stuff I'm into. But I've owned a pile of guitars and stuff.
Gear's
along
only
the way.
going to get you so far. You gotta.
It's mostly in the hands, man. I'm not going to lie. Like you see people, you watch those videos of like people, like I was watching Jerry Cantrell the other day on, oh my word. What's the guy? Anyways, his interview. And
Rick Beato?
Rick Beato, yeah. Beato.
Yeah.
And so I was watching that, and he was talking about like when Alice in Chains toured with Van Halen. And of course, he shows up. Eddie's always there playing, apparently. So he shows up and he's playing through Jerry's equipment, but he doesn't realize it until he goes in. He's like, oh, it's our sound check time. But it sounds like Eddie Van Halen playing through Alice in Chains' outfit. You know what I mean? Like, and total. I mean, very good guitar players in their own ways, but like totally different sounds in reality.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Brown sound versus this dissonant craziness.
Two different people can make any guitar sound different. Right?
Oh yeah. It's like watching John Mayer play through the Spider amp in the cheap Squire and just sounds like him. Like it does. You know what I mean? There's a certain point where the gear only takes it so far, kind of thing. Like if you don't take lessons, you still can't play the $10,000 Gibson Custom or whatever. It doesn't change anything.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, how about you? What's your? I know you got some pretty beauty guitars in your repertoire.
Couple of repertoires. I seen a thick white ditty there today somewhere.
I seen a PRS too at some point.
Oh, yeah.
which ultimately is my dream.
That's my goal.
If I had,
that's where my goal is.
If I had the spare cash sticking around, I might splurge on that. But
for sure, I was again. Let me preface all this by saying, like, I'm such a nerd. I didn't do a lot when I was young. I didn't, when I was single, I spent money on guitars. When I was, like that's like what I ended up doing, And so my first guitar, I had like a cheapo sort of classical guitar that it's all like my parents could afford when we lived in England. So I played the heck out of that thing. Then when we moved to Canada one Christmas, I got a PV Predator. Right, which is like the PV Fender Strat kind of thing.
Yeah, I like.
And
those.
so that was my guitar for ages. And then, I worked and we like split the cost of my next guitar was a Hamer Slammer.
Oh, is this
which is
the Explorer
right?
style I seen it kicking around?
The
I like
Explorer,
that.
yes.
I love it. Hammer. And then when I seen it was, I
That's
watched
what
the
it
video
is.
with, and I seen it was a hammer. I was like, oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, we're just talking about like regular cheap guitars and stuff, man. That guitar, all the equipment that I've owned or the guitars that I've owned and I still do, that guitar feels most like home to me. And that's like $100 guitar in 1999 or something, right? And still, you find them on like Facebook Marketplace, and they're like $100,
Yeah.
you know. But I actually again give a shout out. My good dear friend Brandon Mann, one of these things.
Yes.
Brandon, he's like a great musician in his own right and an amazing tech and gear guy. And so, when I had that original Red Explorer of mine, he kind of helped like mod some parts and stuff like that. I put in EMGs, I put in like locking tuners and stuff. And that was my main guitar for my rock band and my metal band. And that guitar feels like home. Like of all the guitars I own, I just put that in my hands and I'm like, this is it. Like I could play that for anything. Of course, you can't use EMGs for everything because they're like really hot pickups, but just feels the best. So those are my first couple of guitars. I don't have the PB anymore. I feel like I sold it to a buddy years ago. I don't know why I did. This time it made sense. I still have that Red Explorer though. But then, I think some of the photos you're saying. So I got, I've ended up playing. I have a couple of Gibson Les Pauls. This black one that I bought in 2004. It's like a trad, I believe. Amazing guitar. I've played it since then. It's incredible. The PRS. I picked up a. Oh my gosh, why am I forgetting? Mark Holcomb signature 7-string PRS.
Nice.
When I was in Calgary. Great deal. Killer deal. Like I probably couldn't afford it, but I'm like, this deal is so good. Like I've always wanted one of these, so let's go.
That's
so I
sick,
did.
actually.
And then that white Les Paul, that's a Les Paul Studio. That same thing that I found that on like Facebook Marketplace in Edmonton. I was going there to see a show, and just ended up like just going back and forth with buddy. And that's a 2006 Studio.
Nice.
So like incredibly built. Again, got a great deal on it. So. So those are some guitar highlights. I could go on and on, but I won't because they'll seem like a maniac.
Oh no, that's fine.
No, I love it. I'm just in awe here. Like, I just love hearing guitar stories and different.
What's your favorite shape?
Yeah.
Is it the Explorer shape? Is that what does it for you, or is it the neck of this thing that's doing it for you here?
It's a bit of both. Since I was a kid, I feel like. I don't know, just as soon as I had like an awareness of like wanting a guitar, I wanted a Jackson Kelly because like Marty Friedman played a Kelly, and it's like a modified Explorer shape, and I don't know what it was. I just like, wow, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I want one of those.
That's a metal guitar.
So eventually,
right there.
yeah, totally. It's pointier than the Explorer. Like it's super cool.
Yeah.
And of course, James Hetfield. Like I'm a big Metallica fan, and so seeing Hetfield with the Explorer, that's like so good.
Oh yeah.
And so again, this thing was like the right price, which was very cheap back in the day. And man, I was drawn to the Explorer shape, and so I got it. The neck is interesting because, like, lovingly with these cheap guitars, there's not a lot of quality control, right? So even if you play like 4 of the same, they're gonna feel different. And so this particular one, that's my number one Explorer. It's got like a slightly skinnier neck. Like I have, like smallish hands. They're not like awkwardly small, like like those little plastic things. But what I mean is, yeah, exactly. That's right. I don't have like Paul Gilbert hands,
Oh.
And that guy is massive. It's playing this stuff is crazy. But yeah. So all these things, the shape, the slightly skinnier neck. I feel like the scale length is like something funny, like it's 25 3/4. Like it's just a little shorter than a proper Explorer. So somehow all that stuff just made it the one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Everyone has their preference too, and their feel and stuff like that. Like I like I like those wider neck Gibsons. You know what I mean? Like those.
Yeah, I like
bigger
something. I need something taller because my hands are giant.
I got long, lanky hands, so it's just like I just need something that I can really grasp onto. That it's not. I'm not feel like I'm kind of choking out. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Yeah, I don't want to rap. Like I don't know.
Although
I think I have poor technique, to be fair. But there's something about I don't like to be rapped. I guess is you know what I mean? Like I don't want to hold it. I want to hold it. I don't know how to explain it to somebody who doesn't play guitar, I guess, but there's something about holding it because there's less effort involved in one and the other. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, because Gibsons, I prefer the tall, slimmer neck because I get more speed or more comfort from it. I guess like I kind of fall into the frets kind of versus having to find them. I had a bunch of Strats, but I don't know it.
Yeah,
and it's not that I don't like the sound. It has nothing to do with it because I find I don't know if it's just because I'm used to the Gibson thing.
It's an adjustment.
It's a super adjustment. I find like I always feel like I'm a fret away or something. Like if I had to jump between a SG or even I find moving from an SG to anything else is the weirdest. There's something because there's nothing. It's a lot of neck. Yeah. There's a lot of neck happening.
Yeah.
And
I get you. Yeah.
I find that is strange to go to like especially from a SG to a Strat. Is possibly the strangest because it's a shorter scale length, and everything feels weird. And,
felt like I was learning how to play guitar.
Sure did, yeah. That was my biggest, right? And I felt like I could. I don't know if it was the ones I owned or I just felt like I could get away with anything for some reason. Like there's a lot of wiggle room in a way. Once I got used to the neck length and stuff, I could get away with a lot more. But I don't know, it just never did. But like now you talk about like a Mustang or like Jazzmaster's my favorite of all time shapes in terms of comfort level.
Nice.
Not always the best looking necessarily, but like the Fender stuff looks good. I like all that kind of stuff, but I like that shape. There's something very comfortable. It just sits there, like, and the neck is usually a little chunkier. You can use tens. Yeah. I'm a big string kind of guy. I like big strings. I usually tune down low if I'm playing. I'm usually like in C sharp, so I like to do like at least a minimum of 10 kind of thing because it keeps good tension. I don't know. Neck is weird to me, but I'm not a Strat guy. Could never get in Strats. Same as LPs. I never really got on the LP train. No. Beautiful. Love to look at them. I love to pick them up and play them technically, but I don't think if I was a touring musician, I wouldn't use it. It'd be too much for me, I think.
That's everyone. That's the thing. Everyone. There's so many different flavors and so many different tastes, and everyone's got their own preference and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, hey? It's just, and it's kind of like you can't like logically be like, gee, I like this because of this one particular reason. Because like sometimes again, you pick up an instrument, and as cliched as it sounds, you just hit that chord or whatever, and you're just like, oh, this is the one, whatever it is.
100%.
Or
cool.
In my case, seeing Angus Young scoot across the stage and his little the one leg with the one leg up thing, it's like, man, that's the coolest fucking good thing I've ever seen. I want that guitar. But then when you get it in your hands, it's like, hey, this is a lot smaller than it looks because Angus is like 5'4".
Yeah, it's a big.
It's like all these guitar players are so small, and I'm just like, whoa, like 6'3". I'm like, hey man, this Fender looks really small in my hands right now. It's like, oh, it's so weird, but it's like, oh yeah, because all these musicians are like really small,
pretty tiny. They're pretty short dudes. Yeah, like I'm not super tall, but like 5'9" or whatever it is, 5'8". Like some of those look pretty hefty on me. Like a bass looks pretty tall on me. You get a full length bass. Sure. You were looking pretty big,
dude. That Angus Young thing is hilarious because I remember being a kid seeing like some AC/DC video on MTV or something, and like that SG body covers his entire torso.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes,
it just looks like if he's leaned over,
it's just like gotta be the biggest thing.
Like, yeah, that guitar looks huge. It's going to be so awesome. Then when you get it, it's like, is this right? Like, it's really small.
This can't be the same one.
It's really small.
Angus is a huge guy with a huge guitar. What are we doing?
Yeah. Or even like
so funny.
Rivers from Weezer with he's playing Buddy Holly. I think he's got a Strat there. It's like you get it and it's like, man, this is really small. Like what the heck is going on? And he's just a small dude, I guess. It's just
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's weird.
And speaking of like tall, like yourselves, tall gentlemen who play guitar. I love the Big Wreck poster back there. Oh, yeah. And Ian is a big guy, right? And so he plays those Moradian guitars. And I remember reading, because like again, I didn't when I got into Big Wreck, it was a long time ago. So you would like read magazine interviews, And I remember specifically one interview where he was asked about those Moradian guitars. I think John Moradian, he's like a luthier in Boston. So when those guys were at Berklee, he ended up getting into this. But he was just saying like, I am 6'2", so if I play a Les Paul, it looks tiny. It just looks weird on me. So these Moradian guitars are like the body is big, so it like proportionally fits him. Which I didn't think about it, but again, after finally finding out what size an SG was, I'm like, now I understand.
Maybe, those are nice guitars. Those,
like, and then those new Sures that he plays, and like all that. Like I'm gonna go on record and say Ian Thury is like the guitar hero of our time, and people can shoot me down if they want, but I don't care, man. I'll die on that hill. He is. People don't even understand. how fucking awesome,
amazing he is.
At even not even just guitar, at tone craft, like the whole thing, guitar as a whole.
Yep.
Like on my list, he's like almost number one. Like it's a tie kind of thing or whatever. But that dude's a machine.
He's got the whole package. Singer songwriting. He's got the the guitar playing, beast, like just the whole package. And it's weird to even hear that he didn't even want to be the singer of Big Wreck at first. And he's just like, okay, well, I'll just do it. Like I'll just do it. And
I can't imagine Big Wreck with anybody else singing. Like it does not. I don't know, and I don't know. I mean, you can say it about anything, I guess, but I just don't see it. Like, I don't know what it would be. And nobody could play that shit, man. There's nobody else that can play that shit. You can't put somebody else in his shoes. Like, that's not happening. Even, like, since Big Wreck has changed, they've had some unfortunate stuff and this and that, whatever. But even, like, the dude that's, the second guitar player now is, like, he's unreal, man. He's unreal.
Dude, so good.
Yeah. Like, super band. And also former alumni of the Berklee School of Music.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. Man, I'll keep the Ian Thornley gushing going for a sec. But like, dude, that guy's voice, it's not just that he has power and he has headroom for days, but like, man, he's like, I don't know, dude, he reminds me of Chris Cornell so much, just the soul that Ian has in his voice, the way he can sing and just emote. Yeah, he's got power, but man, when he, just again, when he sings the mellow stuff, when he does that and he ramps it up, it's like, man, it's like Chris Cornell, dude. Like, and that's not like a comparison unfairly or anything. I just mean, like, for me, Chris is like one of the most amazing vocalists ever, right? And so, for me, Ian is up there. Like you were saying, with guitar and songwriting and singing, dude, Ian is up there as well with the greats, man. Like, what a talent.
Like, everyone always puts Cornell like up there with, the greatest voices of rock and roll history, but like Ian, he's unfairly overlooked, because I think whether it's the Canadian thing or just the, I think people just don't know, like, really how good he really is. Like, honestly, like, you could name him, up there with any of the legends. I mean, he belongs there.
And it's not just studio work. Like, you go see him live, it's the same thing, right? But like, I don't know, I'll quote my buddy Dave Crocker. Shout out Dave. I don't want to sound like Angus Young. I just want to sound like Ian Thornley. That's his thing, man. Like, he said that to me a million times. He's like, I don't care, but he's like, I don't want to sound like Angus Young. I don't want to sound like anybody. Just give me some of that Ian Thornley tone. Like, it's so good. And I don't know, because it seems like he engineers some stuff, and there's some other people in there in the mix, and band member, like, it's a whole thing, but their engineering and the production and I don't know, it's just like, man, stop being so good.
At some point, was it? I don't know. I want to say, was it Velvet Revolver or somebody trying to recruit him to be the lead singer?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was Velvet Revolver, because I remember maybe in interviews recently Ian talked about that, like he was in the running, and I think it was Velvet, right? Because they were looking to replace Scott Weiland.
I think,
after Scott passed, and I don't know what happened, but I mean, he got flown out to to audition, and it seemed to be great, and then it just kind of didn't work out. But man, that would have been amazing to see him. To see the guy like in a band of that stature, like moving forward, that would have been so cool.
It would have been great, just for that exposure to a larger mass, scale kind of thing, where they do all the the big stadium tours in America and stuff like that. As big as Big Wreck is, and as big as high as we hold them in our regard, like, it sucks that they don't. They should be selling out arena tours.
Oh, they should be.
Heck yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah. Like, and I don't know, like, I'm not sure what their kind of, like, I don't know, whatever you want to say, like European, whatever you want to say, like that, what scale that stuff is on. It seems like they do well. But
they do well, yeah.
And I don't know. And I hate to always be like, oh, well, if you don't make it in America, you don't make it or whatever. But I don't know. It's hard. I don't feel that way necessarily anymore. I do want to kind of kid, because I think that was the style of the time, kind of like, if you didn't break America, you didn't really break or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you could say the same thing about the hip too, I guess, in that regard. But I don't know. It is a super sin that they do not get their flowers in the States, and and I mean, like, they don't get that big exposure. I know they play some big festivals and they do play some big rock shows, but it's not the same thing. And I mean, it's hard to tour Canada over and over and over and over, year over year, and they do it, and then and still put out incredible music. Like they're one of the, not to say that like every band tires out, but like they're one of the few bands that like if they put out a new record, I definitely listen to it. You know what I mean? Like, because some people you skip or whatever, you skip an album or whatever, or you're not really into what they're doing now, but you still like them. You know what I mean? But I've never gotten off like even the solo stuff. I mean, it sounds a lot like Big Wreck to be honest, but it's
like
just
Thornley was.
It's super good. All of it's super good.
Oh,
and that band was super good. You know, like that band was really good live. Like super good. Like they're almost like I don't know. They're almost getting into the category of like Big Sugar at this point, right? They're just like. They're like standard Canadiana kind of thing or whatever. But
totally. There were two bands that I got into when I first moved to Canada, like the era of like, you know, Big Shiny Tunes 2, 3, 4, something like that, you know?
Oh yeah.
And like that was like I remember, you know, living in Hay River, you know, NWT, and like what do you do when you're like in high school? You cruise, right? Just drive around with your friends. You get some, you know, I don't know, you go to the Red Rooster and get like some slushies or something like that. And you just cruise. And so I remember listening to like Big Shiny and like getting into whatever my friends were into, you know, and so a lot of it was like, okay, Tragically Hip, the Bigs, Big Sugar, Big Wreck, you know, like Biff Naked, Wide Mouth Mason, Econoline Crush, you know, 1997, 8, 9.
That's right, yeah.
Man, what a great era of music. And like you were saying, Big Wreck, Big Sugar, they're just like, man, they're just Canadian bands. They're right there. Quick question I was thinking about, if you had to pick, if there was a world when you had to, is there like a favorite like Big Wreck or Thornley like song or riff that just like you guys just love?
I got I know the riff. It's off of the Greed. It's the first is it the first song on the record? No, it's the what is the one where it starts off with the banjo?
Dude, Ladylike,
that's it. Yeah, okay. So it's a tie between the actual banjo riff and the guitar riff.
Yeah,
because for some reason the banjo is even heavy. There's something about that. Yeah, like, and the fact like there's something about the melody, because it's tuned way down, but he's singing kind of. You know, probably I don't know, a few octaves away, but there's something about the low of like and the ripping guitar tone, of course, and his vocal that very much. It's like, you know, like when Alice in Chains does the giant harmony, right? Like the dissonant guitar with the dissonant harmony. It falls into that same category. There's something about his voice, the way they tracked it, and the guitar tone that just like oh man, all the way, turn it up all the way every time.
Absolutely.
Well, there's really no wrong answer. I mean, like any
exactly.
Like I mean, of course, like the first Big Wreck song I've ever heard. Of course, you know that song is. I love that. You know, like
and the Oath,
so good,
right? So like that's a good riff too, right? But even like the later stuff
one with the delay is what got me into him. Like first seeing that video, he's playing that Gibson wine colored V, and he's playing that like that big delay.
I've always loved the big guitar sound to open a song. Even like in the later like the Thornley solo album, like I don't know if the first song is Come Again, and then it goes into So Far So Good. I think like that. The first like five songs. I think I would probably put that up there as the, you know what I mean. Like not every album ever is going to have 5 fucking bangers after back to back. But like honestly, that album is like absolutely can't miss. Like. So
hell yeah,
it's hard to pick one, but I would probably you know I like the older like from the Big Shiny Tunes days to you know what I mean, like the hearing that song and stuff like that opening like to to the Thornley like So Far So Good, Come Again, kind of that era too. I like those big guitar sounds. So but really
huge
like on the spot, I'm not going to be able to think of deep cuts like that. But
and then like Ghost, when they put out Ghost, like because I wasn't expecting that kind. Like I wasn't really, not to say I wasn't paying attention, but I wasn't waiting for an album at that point. And then Ghost came out, and that single came out, and it was
that's
like,
underrated.
This is
that
an
album. Yeah,
like the bass line in that song. Oh my god, it's so good.
And what's that song? Is it Wolves or
Wolves? So good.
That song is so good too, man. I love that song.
Yeah, man, they got some serious. He's got some. Well, I think his Big Wreck have bangers, man. Like, and even with the lineup change, it still feels like Big Wreck, which is awesome. Like, I mean, wicked. Like, awesome. And I mean, I know Ian's, you know, probably a bigger part than you see, I guess, or whatever, but even still, like, you know what I mean? Like, replace essentially the other guitar player who had a huge part, and then the drummer, you know what I mean? Like, that's a big deal, but it sounds like Big Wreck. Like, it still sounds like Big Wreck. There's progression, but
Heck yeah.
it's good. It's like I find as it's gone along, the production has even gotten better. Like I could go on and on and on
Totally.
about this like for hours because I love it so
I hear
much.
ya.
But there's
I
something
know.
even the production of the music. You know, the tones are always super, but even the production has gotten cleaner. I don't even know what the word is. Like I still don't know what word to
Sure.
describe it, but there's like a clean something about it. It's just so clean. It's so well mixed and
Yeah.
mastered, and the quality of the record. You can tell like they took time to put the mic in the right place and actually capture that, like
Yeah.
what was happening or something. Like I don't know. It's like Ian Thornley's sound is like it's exactly what it sounds like. And I know they use like all this new digitally stuff. I know too much more than probably I need to know, but the stuff is so good, and it does not even that portion of it doesn't get its credit for like. Do you understand how good this sounds? Like Rick Beato gave him a shout out there. Like, he gives him a shout out a lot
Yes.
technically,
Yeah,
but it's like I don't know. Like get them on there.
Yeah.
Talk this
Yes.
shit up and
Oh my
tell
gosh.
me how the hell you do that. Because there's, I don't know. It
Yeah.
just, there's nothing better, man. There's nobody, I don't know. There's very few people that can touch that production. Like to me, it's like Ian, Josh Homme, that production. Those two things are kind of like, nobody touches that. And then like new stuff would be like New Royal Blood is really good, has that unique sound. But there's not many people that can, I don't know. It's just not unique in that way. There's something different about what they're doing. Like they're trying different things and it's coming off good.
Heck yeah. Love it. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Could gush about all of this over and over, right? It's just like, it's funny when something hits like that, like, and like even talking about what we were just talking about, like, man, we're talking about the tones, the songwriting, the riffs, the singing. It's just like, holy, like it's such a complete picture, like Ian/Big Rec. It's just, it's so good. I'm always inspired, like listening to that guy play, watching him play. Yep.
Yeah. When it comes to like the producing and stuff like that, how do you, when you're recording and producing for yourself versus, recording and mixing and producing for other people, how do you put your own kind of flavor into it all, or do you know what I mean? Like I don't know what I'm trying to ask, but like when you're recording for yourself and then recording for other people, like
do you put your own vibe on it all?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Do you kind of just let them kind of influence what you're doing, or do you kind of have a general idea of what you kind of think it should sound, or I don't know.
That's a great question. That's a great question. I hear you. The answer for like for anything creative, especially musical, the answer is always like it depends.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
For me, like if I'm producing another artist, and just recently in recent years, like some of our favorite like GP and area musicians like the North Bloods or McKindred, or like right now we're also like I'm working on the new McKindred record. I'm working on the new Hey Driver record, and then finally one of my dear old friends, Renee Galemba, who's like a huge like folk artist, but she also like rocks. We're putting the finishing touches on her album, which is turned into like an alternative rock record, like a 90s sounding thing.
Nice.
And so they're all super different. And what I like to do is kind of like help the artist achieve whatever vision it is that they have. I feel like maybe that's because even the music that we've talked about like this evening, like it's so different, like so much different, amazing stuff. Whether it's like, again, like Deep Purple or Pink Floyd or, the Bigs, like whoever it is, there's so much that's different and amazing about each. And part of it is that like all of those artists, like their vision is different, how they hear music is different. And so when I was younger and producing and recording, it was like I had a certain skill sets, so like I would kind of make everything through that. But then as I, again, moved to Boston, then like lived in Spain and stuff like that, and worked with a bunch of different artists, like I just love when I'm working with another artist, another band or whoever it is, trying to figure out like, what do you like? Where's this music coming from? Because like when you're making records, like those songs that they've written, it's like a snapshot of a time and a place, It's like I was feeling this way. I wrote this here. This is what inspired it. And so for me, I love to work like fast in finding out, okay, what is the heart of the song? Where would you like to go with this? And kind of like, have them influence the process more. Not for any other reason than there's stuff that I love to do, and I could do that stuff all the time. I love getting drum sounds, but what I love more is getting a drum sound for each song. Even, it's like, what is this? Where's the feeling of the song? Are we going to go for a big fat snare, like a high pitched snare? Do we want like a cracky sizzling snare sound, or like a deep, boomy thick snare? It's like, does this sound like City and Color? Does this sound like some other band? So I love like having the artist influence their vision and kind of like being the translator, orally, like to what that's going to be. Left to my own devices, if I'm working on my own material, it's hard because, as you guys know, like when you do a thing that you do, but you're doing it for yourself, maybe there's no time limit, there are no deadlines. It can turn into anything.
Where's the line?
In that, yeah, exactly. Where's the line,
Yeah.
right? So that's a whole different other story. And there I might be, influenced by like, man, I'm loving playing this 7-string guitar through my 5150 amp, and like, I want to get that sound. And so that will define how I, finish whatever song it is that I'm working on. I don't know if that answers the question a little bit.
Yeah. No, and I know I kind of relate to what you kind of do. I find you always kind of put your flavor on it, whether you like it or not, because it is you doing it, I guess. Like there's things that, and there's, you got your tricks as a trade, kind of, like, you know what I mean? It's like musicians, everybody's got that, no matter what work you do, kind of thing. And I find like that's what I like about, that's what brought me to engineering, I guess, is that portion of it. Was like I liked people's flavor as much as it is always the band. I mean, it sounds like the band. I liked when the other guy put a little, just, you can tell he like, there's certain producers, there's certain engineers that I like. And not that they always sound the same. It doesn't got nothing to do with it. But I can always, kind of to a certain degree, always tell it's them. There's something about the sound of it. And I think that it just translates whether you like it or not. And I think I think working with other artists draws that out in a way. As much as you're taking their influence in. It's cool. Yeah. It's a very fun experience, I feel like, working with people. Because there's like these movie magic moments you have. You know what I mean? Like, you're not, and sometimes you're not attempting. You're just fumbling or whatever, like looking for it, and then all of a sudden, or even you hear something that somebody else is doing in the room, and it's like, oh, what if we did? And now you're off in a whole other direction. Like, I love that. It's so good. I love the way you describe it, to be fair, because it is super situational, and it's like a little behind the scenes thing. I think if people, people that don't follow that side of music, that's a behind the scenes portion of it. I think is people always think it's always just going to bang these songs out or whatever, or you go off to these luxurious locations and magic happens in the woods or whatever, you know what I mean? Like these kind of, but I mean, that's more of, like the Led Zeppelin, or whatever, but it's cool to hear other people. I love
Rolling Stones recording in the south of France.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Like,
must be nice.
Yeah, must be. That's not really how it goes now. I mean, yes, there are bands that do that kind of stuff, obviously, but that's not the vibe usually. Usually it's a little more tactile. Everybody's got their hands in the mix. You're generally engineer, producer, potentially even musician, or whatever other thing, coffee guy, smoke getter, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these different hats you kind of end up wearing in that role. I love hearing other people talk about it. It's funny, and that's a perfect way. I feel like you described it perfectly.
Nice. I gotta give a quick shout out to some upcoming things. But I mentioned I'm working on the new McKindred album, and so if whoever listeners, watchers are not into the band McKindred yet, check out the band. The first McKindred record was like more like a folk pop record, amazing record, and so since like 3 or 4 years ago, like Kelsey's the main songwriter and the main vocalist, and I mean, she's just an amazingly talented gal, just wonderful at what she does. And so the songwriting itself kind of morphed into more of a just a different vibe. And so she kind of mentioned, I'm feeling kind of like Americana on this record, and so Americana can be, again, many different things, but with how working with her making demos, this is kind of to your point about like sometimes you have like tricks that you bring along. Like my immediate sort of idea when I heard her new material was kind of like, okay, Americana, like here's that like twangy, we're talking about Big Wreck and stuff, twangy affected like tremolo kind of guitar sound, not like a Western thing, but like that kind of like added with the sort of thicker songwriting that she was doing, kind of like has defined the sound of this record. And so it was amazing that we were on a similar wavelength. But again, that was definitely a thing, because like I love effects. I love the bands that we were just talking about. And so here was an opportunity to be like, hey, how about this? You know, like, and it worked out great. So watch out for that record. I'm mixing the last couple of songs right now. And again, we're hoping just in the next few weeks to get like the pre-save on Spotify and then all that kind of stuff going.
Oh, well.
So
let us know.
I'm
about
looking
that.
forward to it.
We're gonna share the shit out of that when that
Plug it out.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
for
no, it's
sure.
good. It's
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah, because we are local to our heart, so we want to promote things that are close to us, close to around town.
Heck yeah.
And, it's great that you it's great that you were just playing with Hey Driver as well downtown, and I saw you guys.
All right.
Yeah. So how was that down at the downtown festival? I don't even sure what it was called.
Block Party or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Block Party or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super, super fun. Again, those, and like a lot of these musicians, the Brent and the Hey Driver guys, the North Blood, like whoever else, like I've known some of these folks for a long time. Or, when I moved back to GP in 2017 or 2018, some of these folks were like maybe not performing when I lived in town before, but then they had become like bands that played a lot. Like Brent Boyven had the Brent Boyven Band. Now Hey Driver. Again, they're going for just a different kind of vibe and more original material along with the covers and stuff. And so I started recording their upcoming single, and they had this show coming up, and they were just kind of like, wanted to fill out the sound a little bit more, and they kind of reached out like, hey, do you want to hop on stage, with us? Like, we're playing this downtown thing, and by the way, we're opening for Kim Mitchell. So I'm like, I love Kim Mitchell. Yeah. Let's do it. Like whatever I need to do, I'll make it happen. And so it's just one of those things. And you guys know, like, sometimes you've played a lot of songs, how everything goes. And so you kind of get a list of songs, maybe you jam with everybody once if you're lucky, and then you just hit the stage. And so that's what it was. And those guys are such good musicians, and like we kind of have again, I've played so much that like we just made it happen on stage. And so again, I'm super thankful that they reached out to me to play. And it was such a fun experience, just again, busting out a couple of my favorite guitars, the old, they had an amp, but my pedals and the whole thing, and just getting to rock out. I used to play so much that nowadays, like whenever McKendred has a big show, they will, like I'll play with them on stage. And then, so it's nice getting the call. I love it so much.
Getting stage reps.
That was a great show.
You were with McKendred at the Bear Creek Folk Fest as well, weren't you?
Yeah, totally. Yep. Again, super fun. Played the McKendred set. We had 2 workshops jamming with just so many amazing, wildly different, incredible artists. It was just, and you guys know, like when you're musicians, it's like there's a different kind of like fun and urgency in just like not knowing what's going to happen, but you're just there to jam, and someone does a thing and you're like, okay, we're doing that now. Someone else does a different thing, like, oh, now we're doing this, and you just go with it, Yeah. So that was the workshop experience at the Folk Fest. It's so much fun.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's awesome. And I was going to ask you, what was my question here? I had a question lined up. Now it's blanking on me, but that's okay.
Well, I was going to ask too, but back to the producing thing like that. Do you ever find that you, like when you have a time frame of doing things, do you ever feel like, okay, I'm spending way too much time on, say, like this, like people fixate on like the 16th note being 2 semitones down, and you're like, oh, I got to make this perfect. But really, like, do you ever like overthink things? How do you feel like, okay, I think it's fine here? Because for the most part, I think the general public don't really pick up on these little producing things that maybe some of you guys overfixate on. How do you know when it's okay? It's time to move on.
That's a great question, and it's something that for me, and I know a lot of other producers and mixers and whoever, like there isn't like a hard and fast answer, except for you suddenly realize I fixated on like tweaking this one snare drum thing for 4 hours. Yeah. Oh no, and it's fine, and it's going to sound amazing after the tweaking. But I just when I was at Berklee, Valencia, so I got my master's there. Then I worked for Berklee at their Valencia campus in Spain before coming back, and then working for Berklee, New York. one of the things that, in class, like some of the teachers and some of the producers there are just amazing. They work with a lot of electronic music, modular synth stuff, Ableton, like that kind of thing.
Okay.
And so one of the things we always talked about is, make decisions and commit the decisions that you make and move forward. Because if you're a musician, if you're an artist, if you're a songwriter, guess what? The next song is right here, right? Like while you're trying to finish this song, the next one is coming up. And the way to make it all happen is, again, something I said earlier about like each song is like a moment in time, like don't hyperfixate on like, oh no, I did that, I should change the kick drum sound. It's like, what did the drummer play? How did they get the song across? How did the vocalist perform? Did you capture the character of what's going on, And if you have, awesome, like leave that character in it, like some of the best like whatever it is, like artists, bands, sometimes like the drummer's playing a little rushed and that's what gives it the vibe. One of my favorite moments in music history ever is like, you guys know the song "Gimme Shelter" by the Rolling Stones?
Yes. Yeah.
There's like that, like when Mary starts singing, when she's singing that chorus, there's one moment where her voice cracks. Yeah, that moment, that is like the one moment in music and art that gives me, like right now, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
Yeah.
That is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And, this is not casting aspersions at anybody or being like, an old man yelling at the sky. But nowadays, like you would throw it on the grid in Pro Tools, like slice and dice it, like chop it up, put it on the grid, auto-tune all the vocals and stuff. And so there is a space for that, and that's okay. If that's what the artist wants, yeah, of course. We'll record, I'll beat detective the heck out of every instrument, I'll auto-tune all the vocals, just stack them all up, it'll be perfect. That's okay. But just like you were saying, the question is like, how do you like hyperfixate or not, and how do you move forward? It's just like, again, it just comes back to what is the purpose of the music? Are we capturing like a performance, and that's what's going to guide the song and reach people? If yes, then as long as the vocalist sang, and I mean, I have the great pleasure of just working with some amazing vocalists. Like, we recorded all the McKendred vocals sort of slowly over the summer. But I mean, when any of the girls were in the studio, especially Kelsey, like, just for me, I have my vocal chain set up. We have the tracks ready, and she just brings it. Everything you hear on this record is like her singing and just bringing it and delivering it. And so when you have tracks like that coming in, you don't need to overwork it, and this is a cliche, whether it's like music or like cooking, right? Like you stay out of the way of the ingredients, you stay out of the way. And so I just remind myself, just, whether it's Berklee, Valencia, or since then, just like make decisions, move ahead. And, part of it is honoring whatever is being recorded. But remember, you're working your way to the next song. So stop, at a certain point. This is a Gord Downie quote. He was talking about writing lyrics, and I forget what the song was, but somebody asked him about like, how do you know when like, your lyrics are done? And he said, this might be like a Farley Mowat quote or something like that, but he's saying when you're pushing the little words around, when you're pushing the small words around, you're done, like just stop. And so same thing with recording and mixing. It's like, cool, we got the shaker, we got the tambourine on the 2 and 4 in the chorus. We got this, we got the claps, like locked in with the snare. The vocals are crushing it, we got the backup vocals done. Now just finish the mix. That's it. Finish the mix and send it out the door and get to the next tune. So I'm saying this out loud so I hear it as well, because I'm the worst for, fixing it. Like, that guitar sound could be better or whatever. But in a large nutshell, I guess that's how I would think about it.
Commit and move forward.
Yeah, and I think so. Like from a guy who did a little bit of analog stuff in the studio kind of world to doing the digital thing in the studio, and of course in your house or wherever you feel like doing it now. I think some of the magic to some of these older records, and I'm sure you'll know what I mean, is the fact that you had to commit. Because you only had, number one, you had like 16 tracks or whatever your deal was to get it done anyway. And then, you only have so much tape. There's all these kind of restrictions that are put in play now, of course. I mean, like as long as you got hard drives, you can keep going or whatever, you know what I mean? Or you got, RAM space, whatever way you want to put it. Do you feel like, I find, depends on the situation, obviously, and stuff, but if I'm trying to do something, I try to commit it almost as close as possible to the way I want to hear it. You know what I mean? So when I go to mix or whatever, I kind of just put it in its place. Do you find yourself in that situation at all?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I've definitely gone down the rabbit hole of, especially when I was in Boston, like working on, and I mean, this is like after starting to record here in town, not having a lot of gear, having the M box, and just like recording a little bit, going to Boston, going through Berklee, and then like working freelance, like still having access to like those kinds of studios. Hey, what do you mean I can record 96 tracks on this board? Yeah, I'll find a way to fill up those 96 tracks.
Yeah.
Let's use 30 for a drum sound, and 6 for one guitar tone.
I love it.
It's so easy to do that. And again, I've had the good fortune of like being able to do that. I've tried every combination of mic on everything, And so nowadays, again, this goes back to your question about like how to. I'm going to point this way.
You point whatever way you feel.
about yeah, exactly. Working fast and committing and moving forward. It's the same kind of thing, because I've had the amount of hours that I've had making records. I'm super confident in being like, you want to sound like what? Your vibe is what? That's going to be that's going to be like a Strat through a Mesa Boogie. We're going to put 2 mics on it. And, I nowadays, like, I'll usually take a guitar or I'll record a guitar DI in case I want to reamp or something. Yeah. But most of the time I'll take it for safety, but I'll get the sound on the way in, just like you're saying. And, again, if I have gear that I'm going through, if I've got compressors and EQs and stuff, it's like, what is the aim of this song? What is the project going to be like? Let's make those moves. Like one thing that I hate thinking about or telling an artist when I'm working on recording stuff is, so this, just imagine when it's mixed, it's going to sound like this, but I'm recording it transparently. You know what I mean? Like, again, I have sort of faith in like my skills to be like, oh, you want that kind of a bass sound? Okay, we're going to get it like this, Yeah. Oh, you want your vocals or your vocal sound is inspired, your style is inspired by this person. I think we can find what that version of you is. Let's compress it on the way in. Let's EQ your vocals so that when you just open the session the next time, it sounds like closer to the album, Yeah. So I love working that way. I will still take like a guitar DI for safety, or if I'm recording acoustic guitar, I'll record the acoustic DI just for safety. But it's like, is this going to be is this like a dense mix with a bunch of other stuff? Then I probably don't need 3 mics on an acoustic to fit that acoustic sound in the mix. Or is this an acoustic driven song? Then I want to have a couple of big mics on the acoustic to get that big sound, and we'll go from there. But so I love working that way. What's the final product? I know it. I know how it's going to get there in my mind. So let's just keep doing whatever we can on the way in. So every session, you just hear the album come together. That's what I love doing.
I feel, and I don't know, and I mean I guess it's an experience doing it or whatever, but it's something about doing. I find you find your way through the song easier. I don't know what it is about that, but you know what I mean. Like it's almost like you're hearing it as you're going, and not for your own self even. It's for almost I find it easier for the artist. Because they're kind of like, and in your own, back of your head, like, okay, now when I get this, I have it, I know where I'm going, kind of thing. But then when I get to sit by myself and then, put the fluff on, kind of thing, and make it, what it's supposed to be, you can spend more time because you're already, say 80% of the way there or 75% of the way there, kind of thing. And I find records that are done that way, because I'm always digging into how it was done, how you did it, why you did it, whatever. Most of the records that I kind of end up being like, oh, these are some of my favorite records, or just the sound of these records are my favorite. That's how it was. They were finding the sound as they went. You had an idea. Everybody has an idea, I guess, or whatever. But you almost kind of find it as you go, and it's I don't know, something a little bit of movie magic about all that. And like I said, I think it draws out something artistically from the artist you're working with, because it sounds good to them. They can kind of envision where you're heading and they're heading, and everybody's kind of on the same track train here, and we're all going in the same direction. I like that, because I've spoken with a lot of people about that. It seems like there's a lot of different varying opinions. Most, like, I know, like, there's kind of like a split group that says, well, let's just get really good sounds and then we'll make the sounds what we want later, which is fine. I mean, it works. Obviously people do it all the time, but I don't know, there's something different about kind of everybody working in the same path. I don't know what it is about that. I love when people work in that way, and I enjoy it. I'm glad that You said that because it confirms that I don't work in a silly way, and it's not all the time. I mean, like I say,
we got to figure it out.
Maybe you're not crazy.
Maybe I am, but I know what you mean.
Maybe a little touch.
We're all crazy together.
Well, you got to have a little touch, because if not, you wouldn't do any of that kind of stuff. You'd just be like, "Oh, I'm not doing this." There's always a little mad scientist in every person, I think, if it comes. If you're into this kind of thing, there's a little mad scientist in you in somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So no, I love it. What's your opinion on? I guess. So not necessarily. So I found myself at one point mixing a lot of things, stuff I didn't even know, I had nothing to do with, more or less. It's just I'm contracted now to mix said album, said whatever. What's your opinion of kind of mixing something versus mastering something? Because there is a difference, and I don't know if everybody kind of knows how big of a difference that is.
Sure. And that's a really good question, because like even for me, even when I was younger and like making my first records, like I had no idea what mixing and mastering was. I just heard from somebody that mastering makes your whatever it is that you're recording sound like a professional recording. I don't know what that meant. It's just like when that's going to be good once you send it to the mastering engineer. Once it's mastered, it's going to be loud. It's going to sound like it's on the radio. And it's funny because like mastering, and not, like I said, I'm like a mega nerd about all this stuff, but like back in the day, the reason why mastering existed is because you like cut vinyl, and vinyl can only reproduce so many frequencies and stuff. Then when your home stereo, your turntable at home with the big wooden speakers or whatever, like a long time ago, they would reproduce whatever. So vinyl can't handle a ton of bottom end and a ton of high end, just based on the mechanics of like cutting electricity into like this thing. And so what would happen is vinyl would just, it would be dull. It would not have a lot of bottom end, but every single home stereo system, every turntable would have a frequency built in, so an EQ built in to bring back those missing frequencies. And quotation missing. So what a mastering engineer would do is they would be the person like sitting, with like, I don't even know what like an old timey mastering setup would look like. I'm thinking like some kind of like pedal crank thing with like a lathe, like cutting a vinyl. But like this mad scientist mastering engineer would know this is what this record sounds like based on the master tapes. So I'm going to cut it with this much room for high end, low end, based on the mathematics of what a home stereo turntable is going to add back. So like that's what a mastering engineer did. So they would like, again, if you put too much electricity into vinyl, it'll just blow up, right? Like because you're just pumping just electricity into like the thing, and so you can't put in too much high end or too much low end because literally it'll just punch through the vinyl. So that was the skill of a mastering engineer. Nowadays, it's mastering is like this layer where you finished making a record, you've worked on it tirelessly morning, noon, and night, just you've lived and breathed it, and then you deliver a thing. But because you're so close to it, it's great to have a different set of ears go, this is an amazing record, and you want it to work on radio, so it's got to be this much louder, it's got to be this much brighter. Oh, there's, in your studio for some reason there's a buildup of 300 hertz, so I, the mastering engineer, I'm going to even that out a little bit. And I see that you guys have put in as much like 30 hertz and bottom end as possible, but it might be a little much, so I'm just going to pull it down a little. And so that's like what a mastering engineer does these days. Plus nowadays, because of all the different platforms like streaming, like if you're mastering for vinyl, that's a whole different skill. And then if you're mastering, like it's going to be on Apple Music, they've got their own specs. So now mastering engineer will like still make your album like, louder, brighter, thicker, whatever. But then it's their job to know for every single delivery, like to platform, whether it's Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple, lossless, whatever that is, these are the specifications you got to hit. So, you have one song, but they might give you like 11 files, oh, you want, you're going to make a music video for this? Well, here is a different higher, high res version just for your music video. So that's what a mastering engineer does now. So again, it's like a lot of this for most people is still like the dark arts. Like, what are we doing? It's some kind of wizardry. But again, still like a really important part of the process. And man, like nowadays, let's face it, like who has the budget for like a separate engineer for every single thing? So we're producing, we're engineering, we're mixing. And then, yes, it's great to have another set of ears just to pass it off to who will kind of just put that little last little 10% on it.
Do you enjoy mastering more than mixing? Like I like mixing more than, and there's a newer in the YouTube world, Reddit land, whatever. There's kind of the argument now: do you need the master or do you not need to master? Kind of a thing. Do you have an opinion on that in any way? I mean, for me, it's a context situation. But what's your opinion on that?
It's Yep. The answer is like everything, dude. It depends. Like you're saying, it's a context thing. Like I know so many amazing electronic artists and stuff who, they're working in Ableton Live, and they've got like a limiter, compressor, EQ, and sausage fattener on their master bus. And so they finish mixing, they'll mix into the compression and stuff, and then when they're done, they'll export the whole thing as loud as possible, and that's their master, And for them, like if you're like a future bass producer or like a psy-trance producer, like usually, if you're spinning, if you're DJing at festivals and stuff, you kind of have your sounds dialed in. You know how much 28 hertz you can push before the system explodes or something, right? And so they have that dialed in. So they know better than most that, okay, I can master it like this as part of my mix session, and it's going to be fine. They don't necessarily need to have all these different versions for different platforms or radio play or something, because for them, it's like, is this going to move like as much air in the subs as possible when I'm spinning at Tomorrowland? Perfect. Then I'm done. So context-wise, they don't necessarily need to sort of worry about classic mastering that much. And again, for a lot of folks, maybe like, look, do you have the cash to get it mastered for all these different things? Maybe you don't. So your mix session, you just slam the master bus with, EQ, compression, final limiter, and then you release your record. That's okay. For me, depending on what the outcome is supposed to be, like with the McKindred album, with the Hey Driver stuff, with Renee's upcoming record, I know that, they're looking for like festival submissions and potentially radio play, like a lot of that stuff would play great on CKUA or CBC radio. And so for that reason, having a mastering engineer do that final step, encode it with all the information they need for like radio tracking, it's worthwhile. It's a worthy investment for sure. So again, context,
Nice. Are you doing the mastering for any of those albums or no?
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm working as like in all specifically in all three of those cases as recording engineer, producer. I'm playing a bunch of instruments on them as well, and mixing. So by the time I get to the end of it, I definitely want just a fresh set of ears. So I work with again, I know a bunch of amazing mastering engineers. One guy that I like to work with a lot right now is Brad Smith out of Edmonton. He's an incredible dude. And I mean, you guys, I'm sure, would have great fun talking to him. Like he, kind of like myself, like he worked in New York when he was younger. He's kind of had that like big studio experience, and now he's back, in Edmonton, mastering and mixing like Juno nominated albums for like a lot of amazing folks. So nice. To get these albums they're working on to him for mastering is like a dream. Great dude. Say hey.
Well, yeah, when this episode comes out, maybe you can pass it along to him, and then hey, maybe you want to be on this.
Absolutely.
I'll find him on the gram. I'll hit him up.
Any help we can get on here, we will take it.
Yeah, no.
Heck yeah, let's do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So before I guess we kind of wrap it all up, is it kind of a weird? Just wanted to mention, like you did work with the late Bootyman Cardino from Grande Prairie.
I did.
Yes.
I did.
So,
dear sweet Booty.
Yeah. So I thought that was awesome because it's just a weird coincidence that I moved here in 2004. I think late 2004, early 2005.
Okay.
I started working with him. Like, so we worked together, and then
really?
we kind of found out that we had a shared interest in music and stuff like that. And then being at a house party, kind of passing a acoustic guitar back and forth. Yep. Like, it was awesome, right?
That's
so
awesome.
I just wanted to pass that along. It's great that you got to work with him and stuff like that. And he was a great inspiration to many, in Grande Prairie, and he was a great and he was big in the music scene here and stuff like that. So. Yeah, just how it's like a weird like third 6 degrees of separation kind of thing. Like, hey,
totally.
It's cool that you got to work with him, and I saw like the music video that he made and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. That's
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
yeah. No, I appreciate the shout out, dude. He's a dear friend of mine, great artistic collaborator, one of those guys that, much like yourself, like when I first moved to town in probably the year 2000 or 2001, he was, again, one of those early cats who was in town that I met and like got to know a little bit musically. I forget what year it would have been, but similar kind of thing. And then, we're just kind of, I feel like we're all like mad scientists and kindred spirits in this way, right? And so you just kind of have a connection with somebody. And Booty Man was like he's like one of those larger than life cats, just like had all these stories, just had a unique outlook, great musician, just an amazing human being. And so it was great, again, to get to know him, just like you're saying. And then for me, after moving back to town from living abroad, you just being able to work with him before he passed. And it was amazing, dude. I appreciate that. It's a great set of memories.
Definitely a little shout out here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know you worked with him. That's crazy.
It was my first ever job in Grande Prairie. We worked together.
That's funny. That's awesome.
So
that's amazing.
It's like it truly is a small world, right? When you think of it.
Totally. Yep.
So yeah, that's
awesome, man. We love it. We've been having an awesome time nerding out with you, man. But we'll let you get back to business here. We got it sounds like you're a busy man, so you got something. You definitely got something to do. No, that's awesome, man. We really appreciate you coming out, and it's been an awesome time speaking with you. And then one of these days we'll have to meet up and have a beer in person. We'll have to try that out.
No, absolutely. Right back at you guys. I love what you're doing. I love the vibe. Love the podcast. Thank you for thinking of me. You guys got to come. We'll get beer somewhere, maybe better than Fred's. You guys got to come check out the studio at Northwest Polytechnic.
Oh yeah,
it's,
I'd love to do that.
I'm working and bringing it back online, and man, it's an amazing facility. So I know you guys would love being in there and checking it out. So
I'll definitely reach out to you for that. I'll come down there and nerd right out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, love it.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely
love it. Awesome, man. Arjun, thank you so much, man, for coming on. Thank you also for what you're doing for the local music scene and taking on all these projects and doing this local work. It's not always pretty, but it to me it's really what truly counts. Honestly, like it's because it's not what everybody it's not what everybody wants to be doing, but that's what makes it. Because I personally love doing local stuff. I love working with local people.
Sure.
We love having local people on our podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, big shout out to you for doing that as well.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all. Have a great night. And like I said, beer soon, studio soon. Let's hang.
Awesome.
Awesome, man.
Thanks, man.